Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video on coding with Soham Jain. In today's tutorial, we're going to be creating tic-tac-toe with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Before we begin with the code, I'll just show you a quick demo of how the website looks like. So here it'll begin by saying welcome to tic-tac-toe, and player 1, it is your move. So player 1 will be the X, and they can place it anywhere in this 3x3 grid, just like normal tic-tac-toe. So for example, if I go for the middle, it'll place an X there, and it'll say player 2, it's your move. And we can continue on with the game, and let's say player 1 wins, it'll automatically say player 1 is the winner. Then we can click this reset game button anytime in the game, and it'll say board reset, player 1 is your move again. Also, in the case of a tie, so for example, if the game goes like this, then the program will output the game is a tie, and you can reset the game and continue. The program also does a couple of error handlings, like for example, if I click here and then I try clicking on the same square again for player 2, it won't replace it and it'll still be your turn. Now let's move on to the actual code. So normally in my tutorials, I like to write the code as I'm explaining it, but today I already have the source code pulled up that I wrote before, and I'll just talk through each of the parts. So let me know down in the comments below which of these you guys prefer, if you want me to talk about the source code and write it, or if you just want me to explain it like this. Also, in the description of this video, I'll have this source code linked in the GitHub. So let's start. I just have some styling for the headers and the buttons that you guys saw in the demo. So you guys will be able to copy the styling from the source code. But the first thing I have is a header that says welcome to tic-tac-toe. And then the main part of the code is this SVG. So if you guys want me to do a video on SVGs, also let me know in the comments below. But pretty much SVGs are like shapes or objects that you can add to your HTML. So the 9 boxes that I have in the 3x3 grid are all rectangles that I created through SVG, and the board itself is an SVG. So what I did over here is each of them have a width and height of 100, and there's a couple of formatting going on over here, but the main part is that it calls this game click based on the coordinates of that box. So we'll see this game click function later in the script. But pretty much these are the 9 rectangles for the tic-tac-toe game. Then I have this header over here with an ID txt that I can change later, but at the starting it'll just say player 1, it is your move. And then lastly, I have this reset button, and here I also have another method reset, which will be shown in the script. All right, let's get started. So over here, I have this variable called game, and this is what's going to store most of our data. So I have the board over here, and instead of a 2D array, it's just a single array with length 9 for each of the squares. Also, winner is empty for now because there's no winner at the starting, but that'll update later on. Then I have this current player, which starts off with X. In your program, you can change this if you would like, but I just wanted mine to start with X, and then it changes as the program goes on. And then lastly, here's count, which is the number of markers that have been placed on the board already. So if that's greater than or equal to 9, that's how we know that the game is a tie. The next thing I have is this check win function, but before I go on with the rest of the code, I really quickly just wanted to show you what this game variable looks like in the program. So if I go back to tic-tac-toe and reset the board, we can go ahead and inspect element and then go over to the console. So right now, if we type game, it'll be just how we've set it in the code. And then now if I click X here, maybe make a couple of turns, let's see how this game variable updates. So if I type game again, you can see that now the board has an X here, O, X, O, just like here on the board. The count is 4 because we've placed 4 markers. And if I try to place a marker where there's already another marker, it won't update this count because this is only the count of the markers that are actually on the board. And here the current player is X, but let's say I go again and then I type game. Now the count is 5 and then the current player is O. And there's no winner as of now. But let's say that O goes here and X goes here. It'll say winner X, and then it'll also display player 1 is the winner. Let's go back into the code. So over here in check win, I have a list of the win patterns of what it would look like with the indices. So 0, 1, 2, for example, would be this top row. And then the other win patterns would be each of the columns as well as the diagonals. So over here in this for loop, we're going to go through each of the win patterns. So for example, if this is the win pattern that we're iterating through right now, it'll set constants A, B, and C to each of those three values. And then it checks that all three of them are not empty. So for example, we can do that by checking if the first one is not empty, and then if all of the other ones are equal to A. So for example, the first three should all be X's or the first three should all be O's. And that's how we check if that's a win pattern. And then if that's true, then we set the game winner to whatever that marker is. So for example, if all three indices are marked by an X, game.winner will be set to X. Otherwise, it'll be set to O. And then we return true for the check win function. Otherwise, we'll just return false and the game will continue. So over here, we're getting the elements board and text. And if we go up, here I said the ID is text and then the ID is board. So that's how we're grabbing this SVG over here and then this text field over here, which says player wanted is your move, into this JavaScript. So that's how we did it over there. And then the next function that we have is reset. And what this does is it sets back the game variable to what it was at the start of the game. And the SVGs that we're using are lines for the X's and circles for the O's. So it's just going to reset all of those lines and circles and remove them from the board. We can do that by .parentNode.removeChild. So it's just removing all of those markers from the board. And then the text.innerHTML will just be set to board reset, player one, it is your move. So that's all we need for the reset function over here. And then here is where the main code comes in. So this is our game click function. So at the starting, I said we're going to be using game.count to check if the game is a tie. So we want to make sure that this is less than 9 before continuing. And if it's not, our inner HTML will just say game is a tie, and you can reset the board. Otherwise, what it will do is check the check win function that I talked about before. And if that's true, then we're going to take the game winner. And let's say it's X, we can output player one is the winner. Otherwise, if the game.winner is O, we can just output player two is the winner. So now let's say that the game isn't a tie and no one has won yet. This is where the majority of our code goes. So over here, we have the X and Y values, which as you'll see over here are parameters for the game click function. So if I scroll back up, we'll see that they had 0, 0 all the way up until 2, 2 for each of the 9 rectangles. And what that does in the program over here is to convert it to a 1D array, which is what game.board is, we're multiplying x by 3 and then just adding y. So we want to make sure that that's empty as of now. Otherwise, our program won't do anything because we don't want to replace a marker where there's already something placed. So now that we know that's empty, we can set that to the current player. So for example, if the current player is x, we want to place an x into that square. And we're going to split it into x and o for when we're placing the SVG. So let's say that the current player is an X. So the text.innerHTML will say that player 2, it's your move, because after the X has been placed, it's player 2's move. And then to create the X, we're just going to have 2 lines. So if I go back over here to our tic-tac-toe, you can see that this X is simply just 2 lines. And what we're doing is we're taking the X and Y value from the parameter and we're just setting the coordinates for that line. And you guys can copy this from the source code because it takes a lot of trial and error to figure out where to place that X. Then there's a couple of formatting going on where we're setting the color to red and setting the width to 3. Then we do the same thing essentially for the second line, but with different coordinates because it goes in the opposite direction. Once we've created line and line 2, we can just append them to the board and we're done. It'll show our SVG. In the case where the current player is an O, we're going to want to change the text.innerHTML to player 1, it is your move. And then we can get the circle, which is already an SVG, and simply set the coordinates to 50 plus a 100 times x and then times y. Then we also want to set the radius. We want to set the inside color to be white and then the border as red. And then for this, the stroke width is 5. Then, same as we did before, we append that to the board, and our current player will now be X. So that's how we display the X or O onto our SVG. And then we want to append the count. Now, inside of this code, let's say that a player has just placed their marker and the game.count is now equal to 9. Then we can output that the game is a tie if there is no winner, which we already checked for before. And then finally, if there is a winner, then we simply want to change what the inner HTML is for the text field. And we do that by checking what the game.winner is. And we already mentioned this before, but all the way up here in the first if statement, if the game.count is greater than or equal to 9, then we just want to say that the game is a tie. So overall, all of this code inside of our game-click function will check for all of the possible scenarios and cases that can happen in Tic-Tac-Toe. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe for more tutorials like this, and leave any comments down below if you have questions or suggestions for future tutorials. Thank you for watching.